we split this section up into three different parts. The first being setting up of the RDP session, the second being setting up the Travel Studio printers, and the third being setting up of the Travel Studio costing report. Okay, so the first part of the setup is the RDP session, which we will go through now. Okay. Now, as we all know, Travel Studio connects to the Travel Studio servers, which is hosted at our data center in Midrand. And we do this via remote desktop connection on the standard Windows function. So, in order to do this, you'll need to first find the remote desktop connection. You can do this by either clicking on Start and typing in the word MSTSC in the search criteria, or you can just find the remote desktop shortcut on the Start menu. Okay, once you do that, you'll find that the remote desktop connection window opens up, and you'll need to expand it by clicking on the options arrow down at the bottom left corner of the remote desktop connection window. Right, so once you've done that and expanded your remote desktop connection, you'll need to go to the Active Directory or the address book in your Microsoft Outlook. Once you're there, you need to find the user that you're going to be setting up the session for, and once located, you need to copy the user's alias that has been highlighted in the screenshot. So as you can see, we have the word alias, and you'll see mine is K Herbans. You'll need to copy that alias because that's how we identify a Travel Studio username. Okay, so once you've copied the alias and that's successfully copied onto your clipboard, you will then need to find out which server you are connecting to. Now, as you know, Cullinan has quite a variation of brands and subsidiaries under the Cullinan Holdings umbrella. So depending on the user, we've set up different Travel Studio sessions for load balancing purposes. Okay, so as you can see, for example, if we had a user from Cullinan Outbound in Durban, we'll go to Cullinan Outbound Durban and we'll set them up on two Travel Studio servers, namely RDP02A and RDP03A. Or if it was a Thompson's Africa user in Cape Town, we'll do RDP03 and RDP04. So depending on the variation of the user, you'd choose the Travel Studio server accordingly. Okay, so now remember you've got your alias copied on your clipboard, and now that you've successfully chosen the two servers that you want to set up, you can now go back to your remote desktop connection window that you've expanded in a few steps before. So once you are on the remote desktop connection window, you'll need to paste in the alias, sorry, you need to write down, enter the server name that you want to connect to. In this case, we just connected to test RDP as just for explanation purposes. So you need to connect to test RDP followed by the words cullinanholdings.co.za, which is our domain name. Okay. Under the username, you need to enter the words Cullinan Holding. Remember, don't enter the S at the end. It's just Cullinan Holding / and you'll need to paste in the alias that we've copied from our address book. Once you've done that, you can tick the box, allow me to save credentials. This just simply allows the user to save the password that they're going to enter, so they don't have to re-enter their password every time they want to connect to Travel Studio. Okay, so that's your basic setup of your username and computer name, and then you just need to save the icon onto the user's desktop. You can do this by clicking on the Save As button at the bottom of the remote desktop connection window, and you can save it to the user's desktop or wherever they desire it to be saved. And the file name or the name of the session will be the name of the server that you're connecting to. So in this instance, we've connected to test RDP, therefore we've saved the icon as test RDP. Okay, once you've done that, you will now need to test the connection. So to do that, you need to click on the connect button indicated by the red arrow at the bottom of the screen, and once you've done that, you'll be prompted to enter the user's password. This is generally the Windows domain password. It's normally 1 to 8, but if the user has modified their password, you'll need to ask them to enter it for you. So that will conclude the icon setup of the Travel Studio session, and you will now be taken into a blank blue desktop. Well, minus all of the screens that are open at the moment, but it will be a blank blue desktop with just the recycle bin icon saved on the desktop. Now, once you are in the blue desktop, you need to set up a few more things before the user can access Travel Studio. Okay, so first you'll need to go to the Start All Programs menu of the RDP session, and you need to locate the Travel Studio folder. Okay, so that's on the bottom left corner here, the Travel Studio folder. And in that we have two icons. We have the Travel Studio icon and we have the Travel Studio toolset icon. Okay, so the first thing you'll do is you'll need to create a shortcut of the Travel Studio icon to the desktop for the user. So you'll do that by a normal creating a shortcut. You right-click Send To and you click on Desktop Create Shortcut. Then you need to set up the Travel Studio toolset. The Travel Studio toolset is it sort of tells Travel Studio which database and which configuration to connect to for all our different subsidiaries. So once you open the Travel Studio toolset window, it looks something like this. It's going to ask you to specify the data source name. It's going to ask you to select the database, and it's going to ask you to specify the license server. Now, each subsidiary has a different variation. So if we go back up, I think it's to page 4, we find the table that has our different combinations of our servers and toolsets. So now, once again, if we were looking at a Cullinan outbound user for Durban, who would use the toolset on 02A as data source name RDP02A, database livecot, and license server HLive02. And the same with RDP03A, but the difference being that the data source name is RDP03A. So you'll obviously identify your toolset accordingly. And then when you go back down, you need to enter that into your Travel Studio toolset window. Okay, so in this instance, we just connected to TestApple2. The database was tscot-test, and the license server was HLive02. Once you've entered all three fields, you need to save this configuration via the Save option, and you'll then get a window that says Selected DSN saved successfully. Okay, so once that's done, you click OK, and then you can double-click on the Travel Studio icon, and the user should be okay to enter Travel Studio. So once you double-click on the icon, you will be this window will pop up on the Travel Studio desktop, and the user would need to enter the username and password. This is a separate username and password that is created by the applications team. Currently, it's either Jonathan or myself. So if the user login has not been requested for, it needs to be requested for to us, and we need the new user form that every user that is generated for every user. Okay, so we will provide you the username and password, and once you've entered it, the user should be able to connect to Travel Studio, which will look something like this. Okay, it should be a blank white screen with the words Welcome to Travel Studio on it. Okay, so if the user is able to see this, you have successfully set up the user's Travel Studio session. Okay, another clue is just to check on the top left corner to see that the database connected to is indeed the correct database. So in this instance, we've connected to livecot, and this is obviously a Cullinan outbound user. So if it's Thomson Africa, it'll say live TA, or a Planet Africa, it'll say live_planet. So just as a confirmation, you can check on the top left corner of the screen. Okay, so now that you've set up the Travel Studio application, there's two further steps that we need to do for the user. The first being setting up of the Travel Studio printers. Okay, so this allows the user to print from Travel Studio, and they generally print their costing reports, and the odd occasion it will be their invoice or travel itinerary if needed. So to do this, you need to navigate to this print server that was created, and you need to do this by clicking on the Start menu and typing in //mtbps01. So this is the print server that we've created at our data center, which has all our printers and drivers preloaded. Okay, so you will then need to locate the printer that is located closest to the user. So for example, if this was a user in the Durban, USA department, you connect into the Durban PRN 002, and in brackets it gives you a short description of where this user is located. So that will aid you, and all you need to do is right-click and click on Connect. As we said, the drivers are already preloaded, so there's no need to load any drivers or any CDs of any sort to the user's PC. Okay. Once you've done that, you can confirm your configuration by going to your devices and printers on your Start menu, like you do any other PC, and just ensure that the printer has been mapped correctly. Okay, you can and make sure that's also the default printer so that the user doesn't have to pre-select the printer every time. Okay, and this successfully sets up the printer. If you want to test it, you can print a test page and ask the user if everything's okay, and that sorts that out. So then, and the last step will be setting up the Travel Studio costing reports. Okay, the Travel Studio costing reports is a two-step process. The first, you will need to ensure that the user's name has been added to the Travel Studio reports group on the Active Directory. Now, depending on which subsidiary the user falls under, we've got two different reports groups on the Active Directory, one being Travel Studio reports and one other being Travel Studio COTS reports. So whether it's an outbound or an inbound user, they will fall in either group. And if you're not sure how to do this, you can contact your regional team leader. I believe each of them is aware of how to do this process, and they can either show you or they can do it for you. Once you've done this, you need to confirm the replication time before asking the user to test the report. I believe it's generally about 4 hours, if not mistaken, but if it is quicker, you can confirm with the team leader. Okay, that'll be the first step. The second step is you need to copy this part, C program files x86 IRS TS reports, and you need to paste this into Travel Studio. So on the Travel Studio taskbar on the top of the screen, you'll see the setup menu and you'll find the setup web server option. Once you click on that, it's going to ask, you'll get another pop-up window that's going to ask you for the reports directory. This is where you will paste your C program files x86 part. Okay, once this is done, you'll need to restart the Travel Studio session. Okay, and only once you restart will this report part actually take effect. And once you've done this, this should set up the reports for the user, but also remember that this will only work once the replication has occurred. Okay, so once this is done, once this is done and the user has tested the report, this successfully completes the setup for the new Travel Studio user. Okay, we've covered all three steps, being setting up the Travel Studio costing reports. We've also done setting up of the Travel Studio printers, and we've also done the main part being setting up of the Travel Studio icon. Okay, so this concludes our session for today. Should you need any further clarification on this setup process, you can refer to the Travel Studio guide that we have provided for you, or you can contact the applications team, being either Jonathan or myself. Okay, thanks guys. I think that's everything from my side. Are there any questions thus far?
No, not from our side. I think that the document is very, well, dots everything as a true guide. So if they don't understand anything, they can revert to the documentation that you see.
Okay,